It is time for our final Eagles 7-round mock draft on PHLY. And here's the situation. At 32 overall in this draft, it feels unlikely that the Eagles are going to be happy sticking and picking. I think there are probably a cluster of 6 or 7 players they would like to move up for and are unlikely to reach them at 32. And then I think if those guys are all off the board, they're going to want to parachute down. You look at the players who they've brought in for visits. A lot of them are sort of maybe projected in that like pick 40 range. And so players like Nick Scorton or Ariante Ursary or Mason Taylor or Donovan Ezeraku, I think they could hold their nose and take those guys at 32, but I think they would prefer to move down for those guys. However, in this situation, they're going to be moving up. And I think there are 7 players the Eagles would consider moving up for. Walter Nolan, the Ole Miss defensive tackle. Malachi Starks, the Georgia safety. Nick Emanwari, the South Carolina safety. Tyler Booker, the Alabama guard, who I think the Eagles could like, although they do feel pretty good about what they have at guard at the moment. There's Josh Simmons, the Ohio State tackle, who could project as the eventual Lane Johnson replacement. Maybe the Eagles feel like they're able to get value there because of the torn patellar tendon. I think one player they would love to trade up for is Michael Williams, the Georgia defensive lineman, one of the youngest players in this draft, brings that ferocity off the edge. And of course, we know about the Georgia connection. But in this situation, all of those guys are off the board. And the Eagles are moving up to 26, sending Dallas Goedert to the Los Angeles Rams, along with a 4th-round pick in exchange for a 6th-round pick and number 26 overall. And they're selecting Dallas Goedert's successor, Colston Loveland, the Michigan tight end, 21 years old. He is 6'6", 248. Brand Duffy's tight end 3, actually behind Elijah Arroyo on his rankings. But I think the Eagles are going to be attracted to the possibility of adding a young building block to the offense to sort of counterbalance the young building blocks on defense. Listen, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are awesome. Saquon Barkley is awesome. But those guys are in their mid-late 20s, rather. And I think Howie Roseman is going to be thinking about building this offense and maybe this offense taking a step forward in the long run. So, Colston Loveland, number 1 overall. Now, this is a bit of a silly projection because trading Dallas Goedert would actually make a lot more sense post June 1st for financial reasons, but we're going crazy here, and we're saying the Eagles go and get Colston Loveland in the 1st round. In the 2nd round, at pick 64 overall, the Eagles attack the edge with a player who reminds me a little bit of Jalix Hunt, and that is because he is a projectable edge who plays with the violence that the Eagles like, and that is Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA, who only made the transition to the edge this season, was originally an off-ball linebacker for UCLA. The Eagles brought him in for a visit. He did very well at the Senior Bowl. He goes 6'3", 259. He only had 6 sacks in his entire career, 4.5 this past season. But this is a player who I think the Eagles will think they have the upside, the ability to develop players. They have done a very good job developing edge rushers the past couple seasons with Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. Because they now have guys like Josh Uche and Bryce Huff and Azeez Ojulari, this is not somewhere where they need this guy to play right away, but long-term allowing him to grow with those other 2 young edge rushers they have. I think this is a player who will be attractive to the Eagles. Let's move to the 3rd round now at pick 96 overall, and you know how he wants to make some moves again, so he's moving back to pick up some extra draft equity in this draft. He is trading 96 overall in the 6th-round pick he acquired from the Los Angeles Rams in that 1st-round trade, sending those to the San Francisco 49ers, who give the Eagles 2 4th-round picks, 113 overall and 138 overall. And at 13 overall, the Eagles take a big offensive lineman with projectability, someone who came in for a pre-draft visit with Jeff Stoutland, and that is Jalen Travis from Iowa State, 6'8", 339. He's got big hands, long arms, ran a 5'1", 40-yard dash. He is Fran's tackle 16, but in this round, in the 4th round, the Eagles getting somebody who they think that Jeff Stoutland can develop and get the most out of. In the short term, you're thinking about who are the Eagles' swing tackles, who do they have to back up Jordan Mailata. and Lane Johnson at a very important position organizationally. Well, you've got Matt Pryor, you've got Kendall Lamb, who's in his mid-30s, potentially Tyler Steen if you turn him into a swing tackle. But I think this is a place where the Eagles would like to have some real youth to grow and hope on. And Jalen Travis is a player who has all kinds of upside. And if there's anybody in the NFL who can get it out of him, it would be Jeff Stoutland. So we move on now to that other fourth-round pick the Eagles have. And this time, they're moving up in the fourth round. They're trading their fifth-round pick, their two fifth-round picks, 164 and 165, to Kansas City for 133. And they're taking another player that they have brought in for a pre-draft visit. That's linebacker Kobe King from Penn State. This is a player who Fran Duffy says, Kobe King, who goes 6'1", 236, has 27 starts over the course of his career at Penn State, a player whose athleticism has attracted him to the Eagles, ran a 4.67 40-yard dash. And you just think about the state of the linebacker position for the Eagles. Obviously, they've paid a lot of money to Zach Bond, more than you would ever expect from the Eagles. But after that, Nakobe Dean could be back midseason, maybe not. And after that, you've got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and not a whole lot else. And so I think the Eagles will focus on bringing in some kind of day three linebacker to add to that mix. Now, they've got one other fourth-round pick to talk about. That's 138 in this situation. And they haven't addressed defensive tackle yet, and they are doing it now with the biggest guy in the draft at the position, Deion Walker from Kentucky, who's like 6'8", a mountain of a man, the kind of guy who's going to cast a shadow over everybody else on the field because of that size. Did not have a very good 2024 season. That is why he's being talked about in this range. However, a year ago, had 7.5 sacks in the SEC at that size. And there's been some reports that potentially he was playing through a stress fracture in his back. This is a player who the Eagles have always prioritized upside at defensive tackle, the tools in their body. And so Deion Walker, if he's on the board in the fourth round, if they have not addressed it yet, I think this is a player who would make sense for them. You think about what they need at that position. You've got Jordan Davis on first down. You've got Moro Ajoma coming on third down. You've got Jalen Carter, one of the best defensive tackles in the league. But you could use one other player there with some upside, and so Deion Walker is our man here in the fourth round. We move to the fifth round now, and two fifth-round picks left. We'll hit them quickly. Caleb Ransaw, the defensive back from Tulane, who has a little bit of slot safety versatility. Given what the Eagles have in the secondary at the moment, they might like to add an outside corner, but if you want some optionality, a safety to compete with Sidney Brown would be nice, but maybe a player who could also compete in the nickel if you want to move Cooper DeJean outside or move him to safety eventually. Ransaw offers that, has the kind of physical playing style the Eagles might like at the position. And then finally, at 166 overall, Florida wide receiver Chimere Dike, who ran a sub 4.4 40-yard dash, offers maybe like the Quez Watkins role for the Eagles. And finally, Howie Roseman gets a Florida player. So let's go through that draft class one more time. Here's what we've got. Tight end Colston Loveland, edge Oluwafemi Oladejo, offensive lineman Jalen Travis, linebacker Kobe King, defensive tackle Deion Walker, defensive back Caleb Ransaw, and wide receiver Chimere Dike. Is that enough for the Eagles? As Howie Roseman has said in the past, if you leave the draft having addressed all of your needs, it's probably a sign you had a bad draft. And so we will see how this plays out. All eyes on Howie Roseman come Thursday night. Will he move up? Will he stay put? Will he move down? We're betting he moves up. To check out all of our draft content and the expert analysis from All-City draft expert Fran Duffy, go to allphly.com, become a diehard, and you get access to his scouting report on all of the players that we've talked about. And remember, we are going to be live throughout the draft weekend on allphly.com and YouTube. Bo Wolf, Zach Berman, Fran Duffy, special guests along the way throughout the entirety of round one on Thursday night, the entirety of rounds 2 and 3 on Friday night, and then as long as we can go on Saturday, day 3, while the Eagles still have picks, we will be live. Come hang out with us and enjoy draft weekend with your friends at allphly.com.